Greetings and welcome into the Whatcom Preps podcast. This is episode 175, a special Zoom interview. I'm Ryland Spencer. Along with me, as always, Tyler Anderson of Whatcom Preps. Tyler, how we doing?
Doing great. It's been a long time since we've done this. A lot of things have happened. And of course, these are always fun because we have a special guest with us.
Yeah, so long that I think the last time I even spoke to this special guest was back on the field at Civic Stadium. That's like the last time that we even were together, Tyler. I mean, it's been a long time here.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, we do have a special guest, Tyler, and we got a little bit of an intro here. He is Whatcom County's first ever two-time all-state running back and probably the best baseball player to ever go to state as a javelin thrower, Britt Lentz.
Hey, guys, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. I know Tyler's all jacked up. He was all fired up, getting to talk just anything right now. Like he's just happy to talk anything. But we've got a lot of questions. We got a little bit of a game that we're going to play here in a minute. Tyler set us up with some real good material here because, well, Tyler's got this new thing going on called a legacy supporter that we'll get to here in a little bit. But let's just say the first one that's coming out here. Yeah, there's a lot of scrolling that is going to happen if people want to read everything they can about the guy that we're talking to right now. So let's get right into it. Britt, you played at Eastern Washington. If it wasn't for Eastern, do you have somewhere else? Like, where would you have gone? What would you have done if you hadn't gone to play football over there? I guess I was going to say at the Inferno, but it wasn't even red turf at the time.
No, it was grass at the time. Yeah. There's a big story behind that. I was going back to those days. I was going to be a UW Husky, plain and simple. My grandfather played there, a lot of legacy there. I was going there right up to the day before they could offer. I got the call and they actually pushed it back and said, we're sorry, because they were on sanctions at the time. So due to sanctions, they dropped me the day before the offering could happen. And back then how it was they didn't offer early. I mean, they waited to the last minute, made it happen in the whole bit. And it was the craziest thing because the UW actually did me a favor though by offering a preferred walk-on. And then they told everyone else in the state basically, look, we're offering him a preferred walk-on. The next day at basketball practice, Eastern showed up, offered me a full ride, and it's history since then. So I love my experience at Eastern. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I've been out there a lot. I think Eastern is one of those places that it's kind of special. It's a lot of fun out there, man. It's close enough to Spokane that you're kind of at the big city, but also it's its own place. You know what I mean? It's its own place, and it's a lot of fun. Now, the current head coach over there is a guy that Coach Aaron Best. You were a teammate of his. Are there any good Aaron Best stories that could maybe make the guy blush? Having watched him run around the field on Friday Night Lights out there at camp in June, I don't know that there's much that would make that guy blush, but got anything that you can give us about Aaron Best?
Well, okay, I got a couple bestie stories. So one, Best shows up first day of camp, and he used to drive a big truck, a country truck, the kind of truck you'd see at Mount Baker High School. And his license plate read, "I am best." And that was his attitude from the get-go. But it gets better, Ryland. He traded that truck in for a little scooter, and he rode this little scooter all around campus. And here you have 300-pound AB riding a little tiny little scooter, and he had like a helmet that looked like he was a motorcycle gang type helmet that had a hog on it. It was unbelievable. I swear 2 or 3 times between TJ and some of our other offensive linemen, they would steal that moped and hide it from him because it was just hilarious.
They didn't want him making the program look bad. I mean, really quickly too, before Tyler gets into his question, I have a good friend that said he was like a senior maybe when you were a freshman. His name's Dion Alexander.
Oh, hey.
American linebacker. And I asked him, I said, hey, we're going to be interviewing Britt Lentz here in a little bit. You got anything I can use that would make him uncomfortable? He says, oh, he was a little too young for me to really remember much. All I know is he thought he was a pretty boy. Just want you to know.
I was lucky to play with
Dion to say. Yeah,
Dion was the starting Sam linebacker, All-American. He was, I mean, talk about a class act. Talk about a heck of a football player. To show us young guys the right way to do it, and he was an amazing football player.
Yeah, now he's actually a heck of a coach down at Mount Tahoma High School down in Tacoma, and they're doing some good. He and the head coach Keith Terry, they've been together for a little bit, and it's a tough situation at that school, but man, those guys are dedicated and they work really hard for their kids. And it's cool to see, you know what I mean? Guys that were let's see, maybe the best way to say it is like guys that were a badass in college that are like kind of softies now later on in life. You know what I mean? And he's a heck of a coach, so that's for sure. Tyler, what do you got?
Well, of course, I like to talk about the Nooksack days. And Britt, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but I think the world needs to hear it. Our little world of 8 listeners or however many we have, but
double digits, Tyler.
Oh, double digits. That's right. I'm sorry. Your sophomore year, first game of the year, you're playing against Meridian, who's loaded. First play of the game from scrimmage, because Ty Harrison probably kicked it out of the end zone, so you got the ball at the 20. They hand the ball to you. What happened?
Yeah, I tell you, I ran for my life is what happened, because that Meridian team was good. I mean, Josh Lehman, they had some dudes on that team and guys that I got to know really well later in life. But yeah, luckily, Brooke, I had a pretty darn good offensive line. Obviously, TJ was in there, and we had some other big hosses, Mike Brevick and a lot of those other guys. And, cut it back to the right side. And pretty soon, thank God my receivers could block downfield, because I think Ty Harrison ran me down not once but twice in the same play. And thank goodness I had good blocking, because, and Ty's a great guy, too. That Meridian team was one of the all-time Meridian greats, so it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was that team is, and that was a year, I was a ball boy on the sideline, so I really got to finally see it up close, and getting to see the film of that play was really, really cool years later after reading about it in the Herald. And then, of course, and then Tim Tebow stole the kneel down from you, because you did that in the end zone way before he was like in elementary school when that happened. But and then as you kept playing in high school, at what point did you realize, you probably knew you were going to play at the next level, but at what point did you realize it's probably not going to be running back, it's going to be linebacker?
It's funny, because going back to what we talked about earlier, the Huskies recruited me as a running back. They wanted me as a fullback. And so my plan was to play offense. And then the minute Eastern came in, they're like, sorry, son, you're a linebacker. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm not great at catching the ball anyway. So hey, I'll go play on the defensive side of the ball. And I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I mean, the setup, the scenario, the coaching staff they had there was unbelievable. So ton of fun.
Yeah. You said fullback. I mean, I don't even know. Do they even use those anymore? I mean,
yeah, right. What position is that? Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a great position. I mean, as a lifelong Nebraska guy, you can see it up there. I mean, Makovica, Schlesinger. I mean, there's some fullbacks that I loved. But when you think back to your time there at Nooksack Valley, what was your favorite? Maybe like, what is the place that when you saw it on the schedule and maybe you're on the bus headed to a place, what was the favorite non-Nooksack Valley place to play a football game?
That's funny. That goes really deep. We had a pretty good relationship with Eatonville at the time. I got to know Bobby Luck and some of the guys there, and they were a powerhouse. And Bobby still holds records all over the place in the state of Washington. And we got to go play at Eatonville, and they came here, got to play in the All-State game together. But even previous to that, I got to know him a little bit, and I loved it there. They treated us really, really well. For someone who, let's be honest, they were 4 years in a row, Tyler, is that right? They at least came close to playing in the state title game. And for us, the way they treated us, it was a great place to play, and a lot of good guys.
That is a really cool place. Like I'm pretty sure it's the same exact stadium and everything, because it looks like it's about 180 years old. But it's one of the strangest stadiums, and maybe what I'll do is if I can find the picture I have of it, I will I'll insert it here into the video. But and if you're listening to the podcast, you can head over to, I'm sure Tyler's got it somewhere on whatcompreps.com. You can find the video. It's on YouTube. But the actual stands are like offset. So the press box and like the end of the stands is at like the 25-yard line. It's the weirdest setup I've ever seen for a home stands. Like, I have no idea why it is so far offset. It's one of the strangest things. Let's see here. Tyler sent me a picture. Okay. He sent me a picture here, and if I can remember how to do it really quickly, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put the picture up. I'm going to share it with everybody right now, and you'll see it here. And when you see it, we just kind of want to get your, what are your thoughts? What's your take on this picture as it pops up here? Let's see. It should be right now going up.
Oh wow, yeah, I tell you, that was going into the senior year, the district handbook. We lost out that year. It was a harsh loss. We had some things happen on our team with some mutual friends of ours between Tyler and mine, a Baker transfer that ended up not playing in the district tournament that really hurt us. But we ton of fun. The fact that we used to all get to go to Mount Vernon and play in Mount Vernon like that back in the day, that's one thing I really wish we got to do nowadays, because that was an amazing scenario. Get to, if you were the late game, the early game, the mid game, you got to watch everybody, and we just don't have that type of a situation anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
that
old gym is super cool too. Like,
yes.
yeah.
It's such a great. I mean, Britt nailed it on the head. That was especially like on that Saturday, because it seemed like it was every night. It was the boys and the girls and the boys and the girls, and then Saturday would be a ton of games, and the way they did it, and it seemed like it was always kind of the same teams. The Whatcom County, the strength of the Whatcom County teams, and then you'd see Kings and Bellevue Christian and teams like that, and Cedar Crest. It was just every year. It's just, I love that tournament. It's such a great tournament.
Well, so Tyler, part of the reason we're talking with Britt Lentz here today is because you've started a new thing called the Legacy Supporter, and this is, I think, a really cool kind of like project, but also a way for people to support Whatcom Preps and everything that you do. Going back to 2014, Tyler, you did the top 500 countdown, which is still just mind-blowing to me. I mean, you and I, every year we talk about the top 100, and that just is an insane amount of information and everything, and yet somehow you did 500. Granted, you didn't talk about it on a podcast, so maybe it was a little bit different, but you told me Britt Lentz was number 59 in that one, but you also said he's number 1 in your heart. When it comes to the Legacy Supporter, Tyler, give everybody a little bit of maybe the background of things, and kind of how you set this up, because what you told me is once you came up with the idea, the first person you talked to was Britt Lentz.
Yeah, I was just laying in bed trying to think of. I'm always trying to think of ways to grow Whatcom Preps and just kind of do something new. Doing the podcast is a great thing, and doing the top 100 countdown is a great thing. And there's always trying to think of something new. And I thought of this as like, man, I have so much information about so many of these athletes. This could be the stupidest idea in the world, or this could be the greatest idea in the world. And I thought, well, I'll get a hold of Britt and see what he thinks, just bounce it off him. And it's just an idea that if you want to give back to Whatcom Preps, and basically it's only $5 a month, and you can set it up to do auto pay and just forget about it. It's a cup of coffee a month. And when I talked to Britt about it, he was on board. And the cool thing about it too is that you can get other people involved. If you want to pledge more money, give me a handful of athletes. And so, I called Britt about it, and he sounded like he was on board.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous idea. I love it because, Tyler, there's a rich history here, and some people know it. But going back in Whatcom County, you talk about the history going back from the old early days of the Iron Five and the history of the Sea Home. I mean, you got some history here in this county that's unbelievable. And not only that, but the athletes that have gone through it, and what you have done here with your knowledge, and your knowing of that history is fabulous. And I love it because I've been looking for when there's a lot of guys like me that have been looking for ways to give back, and like we kind of talked about there, we do this exact same thing at Eastern. There's a group of us that have found a way, and it's exactly the same situation. We're on a monthly basis. It's not a giant amount to everybody, but it all adds up when everyone jumps on board. And the other piece to me that I see this is that teams outside of this county that are friends of ours, the Anacortes, they wish that Whatcom Preps covered them. These other schools that are outside, because like, we don't have that, to the level, to the level. They have it, they don't have it to that level. And teams on the east side that I talk to, the same type of thing. And what you do gives back to this community. And for me, it's a no-brainer. And I think for a lot of people, it's a no-brainer. You have grandparents, that now live watching their grandkids, and to give, I look at it as a way, as a lot of people will give this as a gift. As a gift of a way to represent, different individuals throughout the time of the Whatcom County League. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool, because it's going to basically show like a Wikipedia page of their career. I call it like a Whatcompedia page, if you will. But it's
Whatcompedia? That's a
yeah.
great name, Tyler. Whatcompedia.
Yeah. So, and it's just a lot of fun, and I love doing the research. Britt and I talked about like, well, that's a lot of work, and I said, but I love it. I grind, I can dig, I can find things, and once it's out there, and it's just a really cool deal. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Tyler, as somebody who, for the last 13 years, I covered the entire state.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not doing it anymore, but I covered the entire state. And the thing that always drew me to Whatcom County is the amount of support that there was for you and what you were doing. It was crazy. Like, I didn't even know who you were at first. I'm like, who is this Tyler Anderson guy trying to add me on Facebook? And then I think it was Christopher Ames was like, oh, you would love this guy. Trust me. He's a nutcase just like you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Little did I know you're even beyond me. Like, you are just absolutely nuts about this stuff. But I love people with passion and people that want to do high school sports in general, because I just love high school sports so much. My knowledge is 100% football. As we start talking about things, Tyler, and you're talking about, oh, basketball here, like, is basketball, do you know every little thing about it? No, but you know so much about football. And then when you add in the basketball and the baseball, and you're giving me track and field stuff at time and softball and all these other sports, and I'm like, dude, how do you do this? Well, part of the reason you're able to do it is because you spend the time to do it. And that's where I think something like this is so great, because now this will allow you to put more time and effort into things. Yeah. And you and I'll talk more about this as we get closer to the season on a couple of different podcasts. But I think this is something that's going to be really cool. I mean, I'm excited for it. When you sent me Britt's page, I was just like, bro, first off, you're nuts. Like, you are nuts for even having all of this information. Second off, this page is nuts because it's like, when you think about a Wikipedia page, this would be like, I don't know, one for like the White House that literally just like scrolls and scrolls and scrolls and scrolls. As I kept going, I was like, dude, is this guy still in high school? Like, there's recent stuff on here. What's going on here? I mean, it's pretty crazy. But as we start talking about more of this stuff, though, Tyler, we're going to have all kinds of different ways people can get involved, even if you aren't a former player. We'll have stuff and ways of getting involved. If you would just like to give back anything, we have some really cool things that we're going to introduce later on down the line that I think people will really like. So, keep an eye out for that. And I think it's going to be really fun. I'm probably going to read every stinking one that you end up posting because of just the passion and everything that you put behind it, Tyler. Like, I love stuff like that. But Britt, let's do a little game here called 5 Names. I know you've watched some of these in the past, so the general idea is just, hey, I'm going to give you a name. You kind of throw me what it is you're thinking about. What it is you're thinking about when I say that name, and give me a few seconds, a few thoughts, whatever it is on that person. All right.
Yep.
The first name, John Stremler.
Wow. So John Stremler is a fabulous athlete. Not only an amazing football player, but he's been dating my daughter for 2 years. So the reality is there's a lot of relationships there, but an amazing overall kid from an amazing family. That's what it comes down to.
So if I said to you, is he the type of guy you'd let date your daughter? The answer would be yes. I mean, that's pretty wild. I don't know that we've ever had that opportunity here on the old podcast.
Hey, there's a reason we choose these names here.
Yeah. There's that research again.
Yeah. The second out of 5 here, Mitch Thompson.
Ooh, Mitchie Thompson, probably hands down the best middle linebacker that I've ever had the privilege to coach. An absolute monster on the defensive linebacking side of the ball that sent fear in other players. Only time ever in the history I had a player come into our locker room from a team that we just played and said, I need to speak to number 52. He said, and I was kind of like, oh, what happened here? And he walks up and said, son, that's the finest game of football I've ever seen played. And I was like, wow. Okay. And that was I forget exactly what team that was. That was a Cascade Christian, a young Cascade Christian team, I think. But yeah, unbelievable.
Wow.
Unbelievable athlete.
I could be wrong here. Tyler, are the next 3 all former members of the podcast here?
Yeah, they are. They all done these interviews. That's true.
All right. Number 3 out of 5, Rob Meyer.
Robbie Myers is absolutely the most upstanding citizen, class act of an individual I've ever met in my life. Love him like a brother, but an amazing athlete, amazing student of the game, amazing father, teacher figure for all these kids that have played for him in the past.
Number 4, Mike Perez.
Mikey Perez, an amazing athlete. I love Mike to death. I had some great times with him over the years. Hands down, most underrated receiver probably to play in Whatcom County League.
The last and certainly not the least, Toronto Argonauts legend TJ Ackerman.
TJ Ackerman, my brother, and literally family member now. The reality is married my cousin, finally added some speed to his, side of the family, which is fabulous, but love the guy, amazing football player and a class act.
Add some speed to that.
I can say that because everyone knows that Tommy ran the fastest 40 time in the NFL Combine as an O-lineman. So obviously, yeah, there's some tongue in cheek there, but yeah, it's good.
that is really, really good. That is really good. Hey, I want to go all the way back to your freshman year. We're talking baseball now. No hitter, Lyndon Christian. Now, you told us the story beforehand, and it is interesting. It's wild, and it's actually pretty funny. What do the people need to know about? I mean, first off, a no-hitter in high school baseball is hard to do anyway. A no-hitter in general is hard to do, but to do it in high school baseball, really hard. But there's a little bit more to this story. What do the people need to know about it?
Yeah, so the reality is going into the 6th inning, right? I'm closing out a no-hitter, looking at the top of the 7th inning, getting super excited. And the reality is everyone on the team knows it's a no-hitter except for the head coach. He has no clue there's a no-hitter on the line. Because again, it's baseball. You don't talk about it, right? It's an unsaid, thing that just occurs. And so when he all of a sudden makes the pitching change, everyone kind of looks at me, and I'm a little freshman. I'm kind of like, okay, I think I went out and played first base the rest of the game, and Troy Slayton came in and closed it out. And I guess Gus, as we know him, thank God he did, because odds are I would have given up a hit. It was LC. It was a big game, but it was a ton of fun. That's for sure.
That's crazy. And, shifting gears to Troy Slayton for a second, I'm doing a lot of research recently on baseball, high school baseball in Whatcom County. He's got to be one of the best high school baseball players Whatcom County's ever seen.
Oh, unbelievable. A powerhouse. I mean, and the guy could play anywhere. Was a crazy piece. He could play anywhere from shortstop to center field. He could catch if he wanted to. He could pitch, and he could hit the living daylights out of the baseball. That's a whole nother time we could talk about the Brandon Newell. I mean, the era of baseball that occurred at Nooksack during that time period was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think Troy had, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think he had 15 home runs in his high school career, which that's a lot. That's a lot when you're only playing 20 games a year. I mean,
remember he hit a home run out of what is the big field, Civic Field, not Civic, but what's the baseball?
Joe Martin.
He had a home run out of Joe Martin as an 8th grader. It made the Sports Illustrated. There's an article in Sports Illustrated as an 8th grader. He rips one out of Joe Martin's. Unbelievable. I mean, he was a hitting machine.
That would have been like, and if he was in 8th grade, that could have been like the same year Griffey was there playing for Bellingham.
Yes, 89. Yes, you're right. That would have been 89,
well,
87,
87.
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
Yeah,
I bet you're right.
They both went out the same field the same year.
Right. I tell you, we ever want to talk
about a
better
career.
Yeah, you ever talk about a home run getting hit though? I'm not going to. Cam Cleveland ripped one off me on that field that I still have pain in my neck over, because he came back from playing for the Huskies in football to play Legion against us. Oh, I tell you what, talk about a guy that can hit the baseball.
Yeah.
I think his son is headed to UW now.
Yeah, I think you're right. Right. Yeah.
As a center, great position.
Yeah.
Oh, so Britt, tell me about your junior year. Early in the year, I want to say it was like week 3 or something like that. You're getting ready for the Blaine game.
Yeah.
Now that game was a big deal, but you ended up running for 296 yards in that game. Still today, 30 years later, we're getting close to the 30-year anniversary of that. I don't want to say that we're old, but that's still Nooksack Valley record for rushing yards in a game. Tell us about that game.
So it's a funny story, because the year before my sophomore year, I had a hairline fracture in my wrist, so I didn't get to play against Blaine. And of course, Adrian Newell, who was my best friend in the whole world, played for Blaine. and he was hurt the same game. So we sat on the sidelines together that game and we watched it right together because he was a Nooksack guy before he went to Blaine. So then going into that game, I had a lot to prove just because of the frustrations from previous year and from that experience. And it was a ton of fun. It was one of those where, you know, you don't get many of those games because you don't get an opportunity to carry the ball that many times in a game like that, because normally it becomes I hate to say it, so a blowout. And that game wasn't. That was a tight game,
Right.
a tough game. And I was able to get enough carries to get to those kind of numbers because the game stayed close enough because they were a good football team. You know, they had some athletic talent on that team. Court Lever had gone there from Nooksack, of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, Court Lever was a stud. And yeah, it was a ton of fun. I absolutely loved it. Blaine, we had a lot of good friends there. So the rivalry there was no letting down against those guys.
Yeah, it's true. And there was a player on your team that ended up being assistant coach at Blaine the last few years.
Tommy Hines.
Tommy Hines, yeah.
Tommy Tommy got robbed. He should have been first team All-State his senior year. He was a state championship wrestler, played center. He had hands that were the size of a tank. And the thing is, people don't realize he would wake up every morning and milk goats. His family would. So his hands were the strong. I mean, he'd get a hold of you and there's nothing you could do. You know, good luck basically, because he's taking you down. He was the guy. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, but a couple different times that he stripped the ball from the running back, just flat took it from him and took off running the other direction.
Yeah,
because those hands were so big and strong. It was impressive. An amazing athlete. Yeah, fun guy to play with.
Imagine him as a rugby player. My goodness.
Yeah, seriously, right? Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I got a little game for you, Britt, and you're going to have to put your thinking cap on. I know you got your Nooksack cap on, but turn it into your thinking cap because we're going to talk Nooksack Valley history.
All right, here we go.
And we're going to talk. Let's see if you can name, and you can throw as many guesses as you want, but we're going to try to nail down the top 10 career all-time rushing leaders in Nooksack Valley history. You don't have to tell me how many yards or anything. You start spouting off names, and we'll see how many of them we can get here.
So I don't have to get them in order.
No.
Okay. Dave Longoria is right there. You know, yeah. Dave, obviously. I'll be there.
Yep.
Ty Williamson will be there.
Yep.
Let's see. We've got to have maybe a Nick DeGrasse.
Yes.
Dong Fang was his real name, but his Nick Harvey. Dong Fang was his real name, but Nick Harvey.
Nick Harvey's not on there. He had one great year. Yeah.
Wait. Really quickly. His real name was what?
Dong Fang. That was his real name. Yeah. Great kid, great athlete. Yeah. So we always called him by his real name, but everyone knew him by Nick Harvey. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
How many does he have, Tyler?
Oh, he's in the top 15, so he's close. He just had his senior year was amazing, but he had done a ton up until then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see if I'm going more recent years, all time. Oh man, Colt's got to be in there somewhere because of course he's pushing limits.
Yeah. So you're halfway there. You got 5 of them.
Got 5. All right. Let's see here. If I gotta go, way back piece.
I'll give you a hint here, Britt. Everybody else on the list played after you.
Okay. Oh, Mike Stacy. He's got to probably be on there.
Yep.
Let's see. I bet there's like an Andrew Larson.
Yes.
Another one.
Yeah. You got 3 left.
Trying to think here.
Yeah. There's these. I can give you more hints, but this is fun to watch.
No more hints.
I'm guessing it's our wing T days. It would be my guess. I don't think Dane Winter. I don't think Dane probably played there. He had one fabulous season, but I don't know if he'd be there.
Yeah, he's just much like Harvey. Yeah.
Yep, a 1-year kind of guy. Let's see, career guys would be. Oh, I don't know if Trevor Arneson probably wouldn't be on there. He played for 2 or 3 years there. Probably okay. Hold on here. They didn't have to be a running back. I took that as they had to be a running back.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
All right, so let's go back now. Let's say Tanner Meyer.
Yes,
is probably on there.
Oh.
Wade Rudiger, maybe.
Nope.
Okay.
Close. You have 2 left.
Darren Van Weerthuizen.
Nope.
Oh. All right, we're getting slims now.
So when you're ready, I got a pretty good hint for both guys.
Hold on, I got it. Cool.
Okay.
Name top 10 all-time leading rushers for Nooksack. Who is it? Don't pull it up, you cheater. He's pulling it up. He's watching back. He heard me talking. Yeah. All right. What was your hint?
Okay. One of them is he played running back and quarterback in 2 different years, and the other hint, the other guy is the guy that's actually on the coaching staff with you.
Yeah, listen to the top 10. On the coaching, Joel Dewis-Blair. There you go. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And the one that played quarterback and played running back. Don't tell me. Played running back and he played quarterback. Holy cow. I'm trying to think.
He played some receiver. He played some receiver too.
Austin O'Brien, of course.
Ding, 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 ding.
Of course. Yes. I should have known him. Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
That's quite a list.
Yeah, it is.
I should have cheated, but I didn't.
Well, you did better than Jake Locker, so that's a good thing.
Some fun names on that list. I tell you, that's memory lane right there. Going back. Let's see, this will be my 24th year coaching. So that goes, I think I coached all those kids, but Longoria and Stacy. I think those are the only 2 on that list that I didn't coach. So that's kind of crazy.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I listened to the game on the radio. Your final game was a Tuesday night against Steilacoom to get into the state playoffs at Civic.
Yeah.
And they brought up a freshman to play fullback in front of you. And that was Joel Dewis-Blair, I believe.
Joel Dewis-Blair, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Crazy.
It's been fun having him back out on the staff. He brings a lot of energy, which is good. You know, he's still, even though we're the same age, he's still new to coaching. So he's all excited and on the football side at least. So it's good.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned coaching, and we'd be stupid not to talk a little bit about the current Nooksack Valley team. You guys went through spring ball. I'm pretty sure you guys went to Eastern, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. It's the greatest camp in the state, hands down. The teams that are there is off the hook. You're talking Lake Stevens, you're talking Hanford, you're talking Linden, you're talking Kamaikan. And a ton of them, just a ton of top level teams there. I think at one point last year, like 6 or 7 of the top 10 3A schools in the state were there that summer before. So it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, that's a camp that I think this is like the first year I didn't go to it in like 12 years. So it was, but one guy did get a go this year, and that was Tyler. So Tyler, when he told me that he was gonna go out there, I was like, oh man, you're in for a treat. Like it is so much fun. But Nooksack Valley, how'd you guys do out there? How was the spring?
Yeah, a ton of fun. You know, TJ Ackerman put it best. He said, to be able to be in spring but feel like you're in week 3 of game week, week 3 of games, because of the level of the kids. We're just returning so many kids with experience, and you two know what that means. I mean, when you're replacing one on offense and one on defense, and all the rest of the kids are kids that have been through the wars before, and not only through the wars, but deep into the playoffs. It's a luxury that Nooksack has never had before, which is kind of nice. So, but camp went really well. We had a ton of fun. Obviously Coach Craig does an amazing job. I mean, as a coach, as a leader, a lot of the things he does to bring leadership up within our student athletes, and not only that, but the freedom he gives us as coaches is amazing. And I would say if I said one thing about how the team was this year, it's physicality, just straight physicality. And I think Tyler would back that up. But yeah, hey man, you're type of ball, Ryland.
Run that rock, baby.
Oh, buddy. And offense and defense, they were physical. I mean, there was multiple times we'd come off the field and teams were like, you guys are a 1A school? And we're like, yeah, we're a 1A school. So Linden knew it though. Linden knew what to expect. I mean, they're good friends of ours, and our kids are all really good buddies with the Linden team. So it was a fun summer. I can't believe we're a month out from the start of football. That is unbelievable.
Actually, as we record this, it's what, a day or 2 days, I guess, under a month is what it is. August 16th. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
That's crazy. As far as numbers go, you guys have, so let me put it to you this way. Semifinal game, Tyler and I are standing out there on the field, and I looked at Coach Bartle and I said, man, you guys got a lot of dudes out here. And he goes, wait till you see what we have coming in. He's like, I might have to buy more jerseys, helmets. Good numbers in the spring as far as overall for the program?
unbelievable. I think we took 65, almost 70 kids to camp, which has never happened before. We had 3 full teams. We had a freshman team at camp. We had a JV team and a varsity team, and neither team was short of kids, which is unheard of for not only us, but a single A school. That doesn't happen. I bet we'll push 80 plus kids next year when we finally get everyone out during the season. So, and again, the class coming in is even bigger. I think they're 25, almost 30 kids in the incoming 8th grade for next year's freshmen going into 2025. So 2024 season, I guess. But yeah, so it's exciting. It's a great time at the Pioneers. Part of it goes is, TJ and I made a commitment back 10 years ago when our boys were there, and we tied into some of the amazing coaches that we have in the youth program and supported them and got behind them and helped them. And I'm not saying it's us, it was them, because these youth coaches, but people don't realize those youth coaches are what make this kind of stuff happen. And we're very lucky here in the Nooksack School District to have some amazing fathers, amazing men. And I do mean men, because some of them don't have kids on the team. They still step up every year to coach teams. And that's what makes for a top quality program.
Absolutely. What you just said right there, that is every top program in the state is that way. I mean, whether it's Royal in 1A, it's Camas in 4A, Lake Stevens, you mentioned earlier, every single one of those, the commitment from the first year of football through high school it's there, and it's everybody. And that's really cool to see, because as you mentioned, Nooksack Valley has maybe never been in this position before. And sure, there's been some really good Nooksack Valley teams. I mean, heck, just last year was obviously a good team. But where you guys are at right now, you just seeing the progress from when I first started really following Whatcom County with Tyler to where it is now is I mean, it's clear. The commitment is clear, and it's really cool to see. There's one thing that we always do here, and I want to get 2 answers from you. Okay. So we do a thing where we always say, hey, if you could go back and change one game, what would it be? And the reason I want 2 answers is I want a coach answer and I want a player answer. So let's start off with player. So we're going to go back to the 90s, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Bayside High School. All right.
Yeah.
Go back to the 90s first. If you could go back to high school and there's one game that you have on your mind and you go, if I could do something differently, if we could do something differently, what would it be?
Yeah, it would absolutely be the LC game my junior year. LC game my junior year, right before halftime. I broke loose, broke into the backfield, and Deep Ice hits me from behind, and Maindrick hits me from the front, and I got absolutely concussed. I was knocked out. I got up, I went to their huddle, and Don Mertzy, of all people, walks over to me and it looks at me. And of course, TJ gets me quick and grabs me and walks me back to our huddle. He's like, "Oh no, Don, he's good. He's good. He's good." I didn't remember it until the 3rd quarter of that game. It was actually late in the 1st quarter, so most of the 2nd quarter. If there's any way I could have stayed healthy, they'd be just 14-7. Tyler will verify that if that's right or not. But
it is.
And I think that stopped us from going to state. And they won the state title that year. Is that right? Or they played for it?
They played for the state championship. They were undefeated going into the King Bowl. They lost late in that game. And if you would have got them, there would have been a 3-way tie with you guys, Baker and LC, I have the game film of that.
I do. I go to the wrong huddle.
You have the film of him walking to the wrong huddle?
Well, I don't know if that's captured because they cut between plays. But
I would like to see him walk to the wrong huddle. We could put that in here if we had it.
Well, and Brian Matthias, and Deep Ice, those guys were animals. I mean, they really were. That's old school Whatcom County football.
Yeah, they were both all-state defensive guys.
Yeah.
That was the only game your junior year where you didn't get 100 yards.
Yeah, and I woke up, mentally woke up, and TJ's like, "You all right?" Because TJ's always been there for me, and we're in the locker room. He's like, "Hey, you good?" And I'm like, "Well, hey, what happened?" And he walked me through what happened. And different day and age back then, obviously nowadays you'd be out for a couple of weeks, but I went on the 2nd quarter and we just couldn't pull it off. The second half couldn't pull it off. But if I could have got that back, and that would have been a fun one. That would have been a fun one.
All right. What about Coach? If Coach Lentz putting on his coaching cap here. By the way, that hat, I love that hat. We need to get Tyler one of those hats.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This the baseball team always gets all the pretty hats. So
Oh yeah.
Coach Louis Blair hooks us up with the nice hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coach, though, you go back, you can change one game, one anything. I will say this, and I think I mentioned it maybe on the podcast that we did it, whatever. Last year, the semifinal against Mount Baker.
Yeah.
I've been to a ton of football games. I mean, literally, I was at like close to 600 in 12 years or something like that. That is one of the greatest atmospheres I've ever been in. I mean, from start to finish, like I got there like an hour and a half before the game, and there was people tailgating. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I only bring that up because I hope you're not picking that one because it's so recent that I would prefer something. But Coach, one game you can go back and change. What do you do differently?
I'll touch on that one first, and then I'll go back to another one. But that one, part of it is because we're two teams that are 7 miles apart, and not only do the kids really respect each other and enjoy each other, but the parents do too. So even though, like you talked about the tailgating, they were cross tailgating. You know, we had Nooksack parents with Baker parents, and it's always been that way, even going back from when I was obviously a player and everything else. If I had to go back previous, it would probably go back to an Tyler, you'll know this. What year was it we lost to Cascade? It was Seattle Christian. We lost, I think it was 03 maybe, 03 or 01, right in that era. And we had a punt block on, and it was the end of the game, and we went for a punt block. And I hate to say this, but we got called for a roughing, and we hit the ball. And if we could have just worked on that a little bit more that week, because we got to him. We got a piece of the ball. A referee still called roughing, gives them the ball back, game's over. We get the ball back right there. We got a chance to win that game. I think we lost by a touchdown right in there. And that was Mitch Thompson. That was a Mitchie Thompson. Must have been 01.
01,
but that was one of those games that was like, if we would have just worked on that a little bit more, because we knew we could have gotten there. And we got there. We missed it by just the tiniest of margins, because again, we got a hand on it, but not enough to where it was obvious, because A, we got the roughing called, but also B, we could have blocked that and that ball's going the other direction. We got a real shot in the game.
Yeah, that was a really special team, because just think about the year before, your first year as an assistant coach, how young that team was. You had one stud senior who goes down in week 4.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's just play out the rest of the season. I think you won a couple games, maybe 8-6 against Granite Falls, and you know what I mean. And so to go from that team then 2000 to the 2001 team, and now you guys, that was you yourself and Meyer and Ackerman, all kind of okay. Now we know what to do, and you have Mitch and Darren at quarterback, and Ty was a sophomore. That team really kind of elevated to where you were for a little while. It was a big deal.
Yeah, that team was a solid team. And talk about classy kids. I mean, some of those kids are still to this day just hardworking members of this community, which is a big deal. But you're exactly right. That was kind of at first where we were like, okay, what we're doing is working. And part of that is I give TJ credit, but giving TJ a year with those kids, because that first year we came in, T had probably 3-4 months at most working with those kids, right? You got a whole year working with that offensive line, and it showed. That O-line they were tough.
Yeah.
They were tough. But yeah, that would be the game, hands down.
What do you remember about, I'm going to shift gears just a second here, because this is kind of fun for baseball. Okay.
Yeah.
Your junior year.
Mm-hmm.
You had a pretty big year. You guys go to the district tournament. You finished 4th in the league. So they bring 4 teams in. Yeah. And so you have to face Cedar Crest, who's the 1 seed from their thing. And top of the 7th inning, bases are loaded. And what did Coach say to you right before you went up to the bat?
Yeah, the craziest thing, and I stand by this to this day. I think I had a 2-2 count. I think it was a 2-2 count, 2-2, maybe a 2 count. I knew he didn't want to go full, so he had to come to me. And so Nunemaker looks out in the field. He looks at me, looks out the field, and he goes, "Hit one out of here." Plain and simple, he goes, "Hit one out of here." And that was what he said. He said, "Seriously, hit one out of here." Yeah. And sure enough, he had to come across the plate, and he did, and it went 385 over center, and it was is that Sherman Anderson? Is that right? That old school
Mount Vernon, Sherman Anderson field.
Yeah. And still to this day, I have told my son this before. I think 2 of my greatest highlights were definitely in baseball, and that was one of them. And then the no-hitter was one of the other ones. And And it was a ton of fun because we were down. It was a top of 7. I think we were down 4-3. I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that ball goes out, and then pretty soon I think
that's the game.
Yeah,
because
that is.
I mean, there might have been 2 outs. I don't know for sure, but I mean,
There
bases
was
are
2
loaded.
outs.
Yeah, and you're down, and
Yep.
you're down to your last strike.
Yeah,
Against one of the top teams in the state too. You know,
Yeah.
it was a huge deal. Yeah.
Ton of fun. You bring me back to those memories and those thoughts. And it was one of those that you almost wake up in a dream. You know, you come home and you hit the plate and you're kind of like, did this really just happen? Did it, you know? And again, Nunny was so classic. It's just the sign. I remember just like, hit one out of here, you know, and I was like, really, that's what we're going with. Okay, let's do this.
It's not a let's make contact. No, it's like,
no.
Hey, send it into orbit or else you're walking home.
Exactly. Yeah. Ton of fun.
Well, on game nights with Nooksack Valley, what is it? What's your role? What do you do on game nights?
So you know, I help Jesse in every way I can. And Jesse's a D coordinator. I am his hands on the field. You know, he's up in the booth now. It's a great rich situation because almost every one of our coaches is ex Nooksack players. I coached Jesse when Jesse got done playing. He's another one of those going back. Jesse's freshman year was our first year coaching. So Jesse was with us in the beginning, but as a player, not as a coach. Yeah. And then shortly came back as a coach. And I love it because, you know, obviously Jesse's the head guy. What he says goes, but it's like we share the same brain because part of it is I've coached him so long. I got to have him. He was my assistant for a long time while I was a D coordinator. And so half the time, neither one of us has to even talk and we know what the answer is. So it's beautiful. So I am his on the field guy. You know, he gives Joel and I instructions. I handle usually the front line, the line of linebackers. Joel handles the DBs, and then Jesse's up in the booth, kind of throwing down the instructions. But I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, it's.
Tell me this: as a coach, as a dad of, I'll just say it, one of the most important players on the team, is there ever a time in which Colton does something and you just kind of go, "Wow, I'm not sure I would have done that in high school. I'm not sure I could have done that in high school," but Dad also goes, I can't let him know that though.
No, he'll never know that there's a chance, and I'll say a chance. He's a chance he's better than me because here's the thing. It happens a couple times. One of them was that run against Mountain View, and it kind of happened. And Joel Lewis Blair kind of looked at me, and I was kind of like, you know, I'm like. He got lucky. We'll see if he can do it again next week, you know, kind of one of those mentalities. But I will say this, you bring up being a coach and a dad. It's been one of the hardest things I've ever done. You know, it really is. It's been difficult because it puts our relationship in tough spots sometimes. And sometimes I have to say, hey, Uncle TJ, I need you to step in here, you know, and you got to be that coach today because, you know, for whatever reasons, it's, you know, it's strained or it's stressed. And my thing is always dad first, you know, and it'll always be that way. I tell him all the time that I don't care who you are, son, at some point in your life, you are going to play your last game. I don't care if you're Michael Jordan or if I don't care if you're some high school kid that never even got to play varsity. You will play your last game. And so prepare for the rest of your life. Yeah, prepare for it. But enjoy the daylights out of it while you're here and you have it. You know, but yeah, there is, Ryland. It happens. I still don't admit he's not better than I was yet.
now tell me this. If you're and I don't want to, how do I say this? I don't want to make it seem like you're trying to promote him. But if you're, because I think when I watch him play, I think he's equally talented on both sides of the ball. As a guy who maybe was going to be a running back and then ended up playing linebacker, if you were putting your scouting cap on and you're a college, which side do you think maybe he projects best at the next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. I project him in a linebacker. I look at his size, I look at his strength, I look at his physicality, I look at what he's going to mature into. You know, he's almost 210 right now. By senior year, 225. You know, and then the other part of it is his intelligence. You know, it's that old adage, the son of a coach, right? You know what I mean? He's been. I have film, and I can send it to you, Tyler. It's pretty funny because Cooper Clausen came back and was coaching with us this year, and I have film of Colton as a 6th grader, maybe even a 5th grader, standing behind Cooper as Cooper's doing his linebacker reads and drills, and Colt's down there doing it with him. You know what I mean? So being the son of a coach, he's got an advantage of being around it a lot. So the education, the high intelligence, football intelligence IQ is probably the biggest thing that he has. But I'd say linebacker. But again, you know what? He's flat told me, and I've asked him, and he said I'll play anywhere they want me to. So I'm like, all right, buddy.
That's the best attitude to have for
That's
sure.
absolutely, you have to have that attitude, because you might not even play both sides of the ball, and there's a coach out there that goes, hey, that's great, that kid's a running back, I could put him at safety and make him an All-American. There sometimes it happens that way. I'll have college coaches say to me, they go, hey, do you think that kid could play linebacker? And I'm like, I've never seen him play defense. Like, I don't think he's even taken a snap on defense. And they go, yeah, but do you think he could play there? And I'm like, sure. Like, I don't know. What the heck do I know, man? I mean, yeah, all right, yeah. Put him out there. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Right?
But, yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's crazy because I remember when he was a ball boy. He must have been probably, I don't know, 6th, 7th grade, something like that. It wasn't too long ago, and I'm standing on the sideline, and I kind of saw him and looked away, and I was like, man, he's bigger than I am right now. It's like, oh, this is going to be fun, because it's fun for me, because you see a group coming up, and you see all these last names, and you see the Lentzes and Ackermans and Coppingers and Hughes, and it's like, man, like these kids, like their families were legends, and now it's starting to come back, and it's, Ryland and I joked about it last week when we talked on the phone about how, man, this is like all kind of coming together, and who knows if it's going to shift back down and come back up again, and you just never know. And it's cool to stay in the community and build something, like you said earlier, from the youth program all the way up, and it's just been a lot of fun, because when you look at the history of Nooksack Valley, yeah, there hasn't been a state championship appearance in football, but there's been so many great athletes that have come through. And it's you go back to the Jim Sturk days and Lance Massey and all the Longorias. I mean, it's of course Tom Ackerman and TJ and yourself and all these guys. I mean, Mitch Thompson, like you said, is probably the best middle linebacker you've seen, or at the high school level, or coach. I mean, there's been some unbelievable players, and going to Casey Bauman, and just so many good athletes that it's cool to see it kind of starting to really come together team-wise. And, Ryland and I talked about it last year in the preseason about how I looked at it as Nooksack has the talent. They just need to believe they can do it, because at the high school level, so much of it is mental. And if they can believe that they can do it, and last year you guys believed and you guys showed what you could do. So I think having that kind of under your belt already, like you guys talked about earlier, is going to really help you for this season.
It's going to be a ton of fun. I was just at a wedding the other night of actually one of our other former players, Michael O'Brien. He just got married. I think it was Friday or Saturday. And it was a ton of fun, because all the old players that were there, because I looked on every groom, there's 8 groomsmen. I coached every one of them. They're all players, and of course, to see their excitement, they're so excited about this, and they're like, we're going to come back, and can we come back to practice? And it's kind of a Nooksack tradition that on Thursday nights, the old guys are always welcome on a Thursday night. They come in and they talk to the guys, they come to practice. And so the excitement around it is pretty fun. It's pretty fun, Yeah. It's a good time.
Schedule this year, is it just a reverse of last year's schedule as far as regular season goes?
It is. The only change will be a week 8. We kept a bye, and last year we ended up with a bye. We had Rainier on our schedule last year, B school. They pulled out, and I understandably why. They were having a little bit of a rough season, and obviously we weren't, and so they and we decided to keep that as a bye week, just because we tried to schedule games. We wanted to get to the east side, and it finally came down to the fact of, I hate to say this, but it's Nooksack Valley, and that's hunting season. So if we take a bye week and the boys can get out to deer camp a little early, we've got, 4 or 5 of our key players want to go. Stremler and the Hickeys and Colton, and they all want to head to deer camp. So the reality is that being a bye week is huge. And the fact that this week we're going to have to play a week 10 play-in game, we would go straight through, as deep as we go without a break. And so a nice week 8 break will be good for us. But other than that, it's reverse. Yep, we drove down Mountain View week 1 at Mountain View, all Friday night games, no Saturday games. And then we got Connell, obviously, is coming here. That's another Friday game. King's there, and then we get Hoquiam here. And that's a Friday game too. And then also, obviously, from there we're into season, so should be a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean that's a a tough week one. I mean, that's a 3A team that's traditionally very good. They got a new head coach. It's always good to challenge yourself early on, especially when, in theory, the game doesn't matter. It's not going to determine whether or not you make the state tournament, being a non-league game. So that was actually a heck of a game last year too. So that should be a good one. They should be good again. They return some definite talent. So Tyler, do you got anything else? What do you got over there? Your brain's always cooking.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I could talk to Britt forever about old high school stuff, but you brought up the week one game at Mountain View, and it kind of made me think of when you guys played at Eatonville, was week one. And they were defending state champs, I believe. And it's kind of a long bus ride. And you start thinking about the biggest thing I witnessed at camp was how close this team is. These kids genuinely care about each other and are friends with each other and are doing things together. And just how important are those long bus rides sometimes, because it could really be a beneficial thing.
Absolutely. And it's one thing that we actually really planned for starting last year's season. That's why going to Connell last year, that was a big one for us. And then going to Mountain View this year, we like to get to the east side because there's, as you guys know, there's nothing like it. Trying to travel all the way to the east side and go play a game there. Last year, that Connell game was in 95-degree weather with smoke that they probably wouldn't let us play on the west side, but we still played in the game, and it was miserable. But what an experience for the kids to have to knuckle down and get it done after a trip like that. And like you said, getting used to the travel. I mean, being on a bus together is rough, and getting to play and having to play. And this one here, normally on some of these trips, we would go and stay the night before and then play a Saturday game. But we're not. We're purposely doing it so these kids have to handle that bus ride and then go play the football game. The Mountain View one is fun. We'll do the same thing as a total side note again, but another fun story. But we get to go down to JBLM every year. Last year we did it on our Hoquiam. This year we'll do it on the way to Mountain View. One of the camp commanders there is an ex-Nooksack guy. And so we get to go down there. We get to get the tour and eat lunch there. And that's where the growth, like you said, that's the growing as a team that occurs, that those kind of things are unbeatable. And then that stuff pays off come the fourth quarter when the chips are down and things aren't easy. They're tough.
You guys are actually going to eat at JBLM?
Yeah, we did last year too. It's fun. Our kids are all, and you know what? It's a great situation because our kids are all, let's just say they're country kids. You know what I mean? They're country kids. They love that. To them, they love to see it. They love to meet the guys. They get to talk to them. They get to go see the tanks. They go see the fighter jets. It's a pretty cool deal. It's a pretty cool deal.
I mean, personally, I would send the kids to the mess hall, whatever it's called there. Let them do that. They got a Texas Roadhouse at JBLM now. I'd be going there and get some steaks and potatoes is what I'd be doing.
That's one of my favorite restaurants. We travel a lot business-wise. That's one of my favorite restaurants in the whole world.
Their rolls? Their rolls?
Food-wise.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I know Tyler enjoys a good steak. Anytime he makes one, he sends me a picture.
I had my first rib cap a few months ago, and it was holy cannoli. I didn't know there was such a thing, but it was so good. Yeah. And before we go, I have to ask, you have to give me one story about Duke.
Duke Haliapa.
Yeah.
Oh, I can give you a lot of stories about Duke. So Duke's an amazing kid. Duke, I tell you what, I want this kid. This kid's gonna probably play in college. This kid has a heart that's unbelievable. His calling, in my opinion, in life is a counselor because he can talk to anybody. This kid, I won't get too many personal stories, but he has that ability to draw people in and feel welcome and loved by him that it is unexplainable. And it doesn't matter who it is. And the other thing is, to him, he doesn't care what your standing is in the local preppy or jock or whatever it is. He doesn't care. He is the most down-to-earth individual who just has the biggest heart in the world. He's an amazing kid. I keep telling college coaches this, and a couple of them are pretty interesting. I think he's going to definitely play at the next level, but an amazing kid. And what you see is what you get for real with him. That smile is real. It's who he is.
Yeah, I've had a few interactions with him. It was so funny because, his freshman year was the COVID year, so I didn't come out to practice. The next year I came out, but I think he had COVID, so he wasn't at practice. And I'm thinking, man, this is another kid that I'm never going to be seen face to face when I come out to practice and get headshots and stuff. Last year I came out, he was there, and you're absolutely right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but you just did. It was like we were long lost friends. I'd never met him before. And he put his arm around me, and he's just like, hey, Tyler, how you doing, buddy? And I'm like, this is Duke Holley-Appy-Appy. He's not supposed to know. You know? And we talked and we laughed, and I'm talking like pregame, like after the Star Spangled Banner, he'll put his arm around me and he'll be like, hey man, this is so cool that you're here. Thank you so much for what you do. Let me tell you how good Jackson Bennett is. He is under the radar. You know what I mean? And it's like that what he gives out is just so positive. And
he walks up. We're at the Northwest Showcase Camp. This is the one down in Oregon, and he walks up with John Stremler, and I forget who they're talking, one of the Pac-12 coaches, and he walks up and he says, "Hey, I just want to tell you, this kid right here," and he's pointing at John. He says, "He has the biggest heart in the world. He plays every play all the way to the finish." He says, not every play. I try my best, but he does a way better job." And the coach looks at him and says, "Son, if you don't have a future in football, you have a future in marketing. Keep at it."
He could be an agent.
He's selling John. He's selling John for Pac-12 coach. It was great. Oh, it was great.
Tyler, what was it? He was the one that did an intro for us last year, but was it? It was like he didn't, or you didn't even ask him or something. I can't remember what the story was behind it.
I just asked him to do an intro, and he sent it back, and he included like 10 kids in it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like hooting and hollering, making all kinds of noise, and like.
Yeah.
I remember you sent it to me, and I listened to it, and I was just like, "This guy is a nut. Like this guy is a nutcase."
Yeah,
so in the best way possible. Yeah.
And there isn't anybody he doesn't know. Like we go play Linden, and Linden guys love him, and they're all come and talking. We go play Baker, and it's the Baker guys. We go play Meridian. I mean, he knows everybody. The kid is just that happy, can talk to anybody. An amazing individual. He really is.
When I did those interviews, those quick video interviews last year, and I'm asking just kind of rapid fire questions, and one of them was, where do you think you'll land on the top 100 list? And he said, I don't know, but probably ahead of Dane Gatterman and Landon Hatchett.
Two of his buddies. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like he understands, and he was right in between them. But him saying that is just hilarious. You know what I mean? And he's just and when he even wrote his name on the piece of paper, it said Duke Holly. He just ran out of room. He could be a stand-up comedian. He could be, like you said, a counselor, a teacher. I mean, he's just, oh man, he's a joy. And it seems like Ryland and I have been talking about him forever, and because we have been. And
Tyler, the first time we talked about him, you had his name on the spreadsheet, and I go, "Bro, how do you say this guy's last name?" And you go, "I don't know." And I go, "Well, we got to figure that one out before we start recording." And he goes, I mean, I guess I could call Coach Meyer, I think it was, and I go, "Yeah, call him." And you had it. I remember it was loud enough that I could hear it. And he was like, just pronounce all of the vowels is what he said.
And that's, and ever since then, I mean, he's been a favorite of ours, and I remember saying to you, Ryland, because I was standing by the goalpost. Nooksack's on defense on their own 5, and I'm taking pictures and I'm watching, and what stood out to me was just it looked like when the Seahawks brought in Cortez Kennedy, and they went from a 3-4 to a 4-3. They still had your boy over there, Joe Nash, and they still had Jeff Bryant and Jacob Green on the outside. You could stand behind and you know exactly which one Cortez Kennedy was. That's what it was like with Duke. He's just and his get off and his speed and his, oh man, it was just so fun to watch.
He's got such a great center of gravity. Like he's one of those guys that doesn't have a problem gaining the leverage of shoulder of pad level. You know what I mean? Like it's there, and he never gives it up. And then he's got such a good first step. And I don't know what his lifting numbers are. I don't know if he's a beast in the weight room or if he's a guy that shows up once. But the way that he has the ability to just move guys almost with like one hand at times, it's just the strength that's behind him. I remember I had a buddy in high school that was, he's probably 320, we never saw him the entire offseason, and then he would come in and throw up like 350 on bench, and you're just like, bro, like what? How do you do this? And you don't even work out. But that's the thing with Duke. It's one of those. It's almost like it looks like he just has natural strength behind him that he can just, and then his thighs and his legs are just so strong and compact that he can just, man, it's fun to watch. I mean, as a guy who takes a lot of pride in, I mean, I'll say it this way, everything between the guards and, like between the ends on defense, or I guess between the tackles and the ends, that's a guy that I don't know if I would want him on offense or defense, because I think he could be a heck of a center at the next level. But I look at him as like almost like a 3-tech, maybe, just a guy that just creates a lot. You know who he is, Tyler? He's a little bit like who is the shorter guy that the Seahawks have had the last couple of years at D tackle with a really long arms?
Yeah, I know who you're talking.
He just left this season. Poona Ford.
Poona Ford, yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like Poona Ford, where like, he's not 6'4". He's not the tallest guy on the field, but you watch him and it's like, man, he plays a lot bigger than he even is, and he's a big dude as it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the part that people don't realize is that he decided last year he played basketball. So he played the full season of basketball. And then after that, he decided he's going to turn out for track. Yeah. He was a 3-sport athlete last year, and it was actually really good for him because it kept him in great shape. Now, here's the cool thing is, though, Duke in great shape is still 6'3", 309. So he's a monster in great shape, but it was a fun year for Duke.
Yeah, we actually have a kid. It's funny that you mentioned 309, because I wouldn't have thought he was 309. I mean, just watching his film and the way that he plays, like, he plays bigger than 309, but he looks smaller than 309. You know what I mean? And there's actually a kid that we do I don't know, weekly weigh-ins or whatever at Bothell. We had a kid that weighed in well over 350. And if you would have asked me for 13 years, I've been looking at kids kind of projecting weights and heights and stuff so that when they say something to me, I know whether or not they're lying. And if you would have asked me, I would have said this kid's probably more like 330, 335. And then when I heard the weight, I went, okay, for a guy that, like, how do some of these guys move like that? Like, my goodness, like what world are we? Could you imagine what a guy like the size of Duke and the way that he plays and stuff would have done in the 80s and 90s? Like, he would have been just fine back then. Whereas I hate to say it, but a lot of kids nowadays, they don't understand what it would have been like to play in the 80s and 90s. Like, a lot of these kids nowadays, I don't know that they would have survived, some of these linemen, with how just mean and nasty and physical. And man, it's fun to watch him. And I mean, Stremler, I love Stremler too. I really like John Stremler a lot, and so you guys got some other guys inside too that are big, strong boys. And I mean, it's really cool to see, because you've got speed and you've got talent at the skill positions that maybe aren't like country boys. You know what I mean? Like, when you look at the way that they play on offense, but then you look at the line and you're like, yeah, those are some guys that can move some bales of hay if we, you know what I mean? Or if we get the tractor stuck in the mud, we'll have these guys pull it out. You know what I mean? So it's really cool to see. I mean, I'm really excited to see what you guys do this year. And I mean, it's a team. Tyler has always said that, and Tyler, I'm throwing you out here, but Tyler's always said that, when he goes to Nooksack Valley, it's always the place where he feels most welcome at times. You know what I mean? And it's like people that he doesn't know are high-fiving him and saying, thanks for coming out. And, everywhere he goes, if he wants to go up in the booth, he can do it. If he wants to go, take a leak on the 50-yard line right in the middle of the play, he could pull it off, and probably nobody would say anything. I mean,
yeah.
You have to wear less.
Love him. I tell you, everyone here loves him. There's a lot of truth to that, because, again, it's what both you guys do, though. I mean, you guys don't get near enough credit. You guys don't understand how much you touch these young kids. You know what I mean? And I mean that in a good way, not in the way that might have came out.
Whoa. Subway Jared has nothing to do with this. We're good here.
But these kids, they cannot wait for your articles to come out. They cannot wait for the podcast to come out. They can't wait, because I tell you, to them, you guys have become these, this shelf up here that is these local celebrities. To hear you guys talk about them is power. You know what? It pushes them. It makes them work harder. I mean, there's so much power. And then for what you guys do on the backside, that nobody has even any clue what you guys are doing as far as pushing these kids on the outside, right? Trying to get them opportunities. I am unbelievably grateful to you guys. And I know that all these kids are too. And again, they love it. And that's why, again, going back to what you're doing, Tyler, the legacy stuff is huge. I mean, people need to understand the support of that allows all of this, I hate to say this, but to happen. And that is a huge push because people need to understand and realize what you guys do. And they do. They enjoy the daylights out of it. And they only know 50% of what you do. They don't know the other half, Yeah. Thank you again for what you guys do. It's unbelievable.
Tyler, you got anything else?
Well, the only question I have left is, what do you think you could run a 40 in tomorrow?
Hey. Golden's telling me it'd be calendar time, he says. I'm disagreeing, but
let's take out the sundial.
I was going to say, would we time it with a sundial or a watch? Which one?
Let's just say that if I ran a 40, nobody would be there to time it. I wouldn't do it in front of anybody.
No, let me change it to, if you at 41 or whatever you are now, and you in week 1 at Mountain View, you put on this pads, how many carries could you give Nooksack Valley?
1. It'd be a good one, but I'd give them 1.
Hey, if it's anything like the one you had against Meridian on the first one. Now, you know what? I will say this. So as we prepared for this, Tyler wanted me to ask you about, first play, 80 yards, blah, 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 blah. And then he threw a little bit of a barb out there and he goes, and I think he even had less than 90 yards in that game. And I was like, oh, really? I went and looked it up. 7 carries, 86 yards is what you had. 80 of them on the first play. So when you talk about how good that Meridian team was, and you talked about, you mentioned, was it Ty Harrison chasing you down twice in the play? I mean, that shows people how remarkable that one play for 80 yards was.
It was some great blocking. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, I think it was. What did I say, Tyler? It was one play for 80 yards, and then it was 6 plays for 6 yards. But it turned into instead of being 80 yards average per carry, it turned into like 12.3.
Yeah.
I mean,
it looks good.
Not gonna lie, that's pretty tough to do in a bad way. I mean, that's
right. You're not kidding. You are not kidding. No.
You know what? That's 7 carries and 86 yards more than me or Tyler ever had. So
you got that right.
You're doing something right, although I don't know that really is doing something right because he's a washed up kicker. I'm a washed up fat guy. I am a fat guy. Tyler, anything else before we get into here?
I think we're good. I just want to say thanks, Britt, because it's such a cool full circle thing. Because watching you in high school, reading about you, we were only 2 grades apart. It was awe-inspiring to see what you did on the field, and then probably 6 or 7 years later, I'm sitting in a dugout next to you at Jerry Fields, and it's like, holy cow! Like, we're playing softball together, and you putting your arm around me and making me feel comfortable right away. What you were saying about Duke, you're the exact same way, and it's just been a really cool thing all these years to get to know you and your family, and to be able to do what I do. It's I'm the luckiest guy in the world. It's really cool. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, brother. And it's been 30 years. That makes us both pretty old.
Hey, there's a lot of gray in this podcast right now. A lot of gray to go around. Tyler, we need to start interviewing some much older guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
We need to get Bob Ames on here so we feel a little bit young. How about that?
We won't let Britt tell any Bob Ames stories. I know he's got those. So.
Tyler, we have a couple more of these video Zoom podcasts that we're going to do. Who are the other? I can't remember off the top of my head. We got 2 more to do specifically. Who was it?
Yeah, we're going to introduce the new head coach at Seaholm, Brian Young, and also the new head coach at Blaine, Andy Olson. We'll get those before the season starts.
Andy Olson finally gets on the podcast, even though we've mentioned his name quite a few times over the last 2 years on the podcast. So those will be fun. So be sure to look for those as we go forward. Tyler, by the time this goes up, will you have already kind of put the legacy supporter stuff up? I don't know.
I think so. I'm going to try to correspond it together. And it's going to be, we're going to kind of launch it at the same time.
This is how professional we are. I have no idea what his plan is with any of this. All I know is it's really cool. So, and then Tyler, if they want to reach out to you about any of that, what's the easiest way to do that?
Well, through Facebook is probably the easiest way. You can find me on there, or go to anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look for Whatcom Preps. just the easiest way.
BMU there or something. And
That's there.
yeah, the new hat you got there, Tyler.
That's right.
Yeah, and we're gonna have all the same stuff going forward. We're gonna have team previews coming up at the end of August. We've got all kinds of crazy stuff gonna go on. We're gonna have another. We're going to be adding a third person to the fantasy this year.
Yeah.
I mean, we got all kinds of crazy stuff that we're working on, cooking up over here. So be sure to check out everything, whatcompreps.com. He's Tyler Anderson. Britt Lentz, thank you for your time.
Thank you, brother.